strikes me is that it isn't just a plan for one app or one service. It feels more like an architectural blueprint for a whole ecosystem, right? All interconnected. So our job today is to figure out the actual methods Mufareh is using here, especially how the tech is built to, well, change the user's financial relationship with the platform itself. That sounds different.
It is different, and we can jump straight into that because the foundational belief is really where it all starts to diverge from the norm. Mufareh has this simple but pretty profound statement. Technology should work for humans, not the other way around.
Okay, on the surface, that sounds like, good customer service 101. But if you apply that to the tech industry, the multi-trillion-dollar tech industry, that's a radical idea, isn't it? It
Yeah.
suggests that tech shouldn't be a hurdle. It shouldn't be mainly designed to, siphon off your data or just take your money.
Exactly. And that philosophical starting point, it directly shapes the business goals that come next. So first up, it's about making technology democratic. The aim is to make sophisticated stuff, AI, automation, complex cloud services actually usable for, well, ordinary people, small business owners, not just the IT pros.
Right. That accessibility goal immediately points towards simplification. You can't make complex tech democratic if it's impossible to use.
Absolutely. And the second big goal, it kind of moves beyond just making a profit. The mission, as they frame it, is solving real-world problems, the kind of deep, frustrating issues that, older systems just haven't managed to fix. That's where the disruptive innovation piece comes in. Using automation, using AI to make complicated global experiences simpler. And maybe most critically, the strategy focuses on building systems that can actually generate residual income for the users themselves. That's a huge shift. It turns the user base into this incentivized, almost self-powering community.
Okay, so the strategy kicks off with a philosophy, a core belief, and it ultimately leads to a potential financial benefit for the user. That's the loop. All right, let's unpack this. How do they actually approach it? Starting right at the beginning, how do they even decide what to build and why?
Well, looking through the sources, it's really clear Mufareh's team isn't thinking about just launching, say, one app at a time. Their focus is squarely on building entire ecosystems, interconnected ones, designed to last, designed to resilience, making sure one tool actually boosts the effectiveness of the others.
That suggests that the early stage, the strategic bit before development, what they call vision mapping, must be incredibly important. Like before engineers get involved, before any code gets written for production, what are those absolutely core questions they hammer out?
Yeah, they follow this very structured four-part inquiry process. It's quite rigorous.
Yeah.
The first part is purely diagnostic. It centers entirely on user pain. The question is, what specific structural problem are we trying to solve? And that means getting past just surface-level features. It's about digging into those deep systemic issues that cost users time, cause frustration, or, frankly, cost them money.
Okay, deep problems. And the second question, that must tie back to the democratization goal you mentioned.
Exactly. Question two is, who needs this solution the most? This speaks directly to making sure whatever they build is accessible. Accessible to individuals, to small businesses, the ones who might normally get priced out or just ignored by typical Silicon Valley stuff. They actively look for where the exclusion is greatest.
It sounds like they're deliberately picking the toughest problems, the ones with the biggest global footprint. And then, I suppose, comes the tech challenge.
That's question three. How can AI, automation, and innovation make this solution scalable globally? They're thinking about worldwide deployment, handling millions, maybe billions of interactions right from the very beginning. So this question forces them to identify the foundational tech they need to actually achieve that kind of scale without the whole thing slowing down or breaking.
Right. And then the last question, the one that seems to define their whole user commitment, what's the actual tangible impact going to be?
Yeah, the final step is analyzing that intended impact, both socially and personally. How will this technology genuinely change people's lives, financially and socially? And look, if the answer doesn't include significant life change, maybe by making their business easy or directly creating new ways to earn them, then the product just doesn't get the green light. That final filter seems absolutely core to their whole mission.
Okay, this highly structured process, it definitely becomes clearer when we look at a specific example, like the development of O-Wallet, their digital banking system. The sources use that as a kind of textbook case of this vision mapping, driven purely by, well, user frustration.
Absolutely. The team didn't just randomly decide, hey, let's build a payment system. No, they started by doing really meticulous competitive research, looking at the structural flaws in the big established systems, PayPal, Stripe, even traditional banking networks. They were hunting for market gaps that weren't just technical glitches, but almost philosophical failures, problems baked into the old way of doing things.
Let's dig into those gaps. What specific problems did Mufareh see in the existing financial setup? What wasn't working?
Well, the complaints they found were consistent, pretty severe, and global. The biggest one, transaction friction, especially high fees, often, 3% or even more. That really eats into profits, particularly for some businesses. These fees are often needed in the old financial world to cover all the middlemen involved when money moves across borders.
Right. And what about speed
Hmm.
and just being able to access the system at all, especially in developing countries?
That was another huge sticking point, the delays in settlement. Traditional bank transfer, they can take days. That's crippling if your business needs cash flow. Right? Maybe most fundamentally, these old ones just locked out huge numbers of people around the world because they required you to have a traditional bank account, maybe a credit history. That automatically limits access for millions, billions maybe, in developing nations.
Okay, so the problems are clear. High fees, slow speed, and exclusion. So the O-Wallet solution, logically, had to structurally reverse all three of those things. How did they actually engineer it to manage near-instant global transactions and keep fees low?
From what the sources suggest, OWallet basically bypasses a lot of those old intermediary heavy interbank systems. It seems engineered instant P2P, peer-to-peer, or peer globally. And it operates with low or even zero fees because it cuts down the reliance on all those financial middlemen. That must mean they needed a custom internal ledger system focused purely on making things fast and efficient.
That's a massive technical challenge, and it must enormous pressure on security, right, if money's moving that fast.
It absolutely does. So to handle the fraud risks in a system moving at that speed, they built an advanced AI-driven fraud detection. It looks for unusual patterns, behavioral anomalies instantly, not relying on someone manually flagging something later or just simple static rules. And crucially, OWallet was designed from the outset to be empowering, to let people participate in the global digital economy even if they don't have traditional bank ties. That hits that democratization goal head on.
So O-Wallet isn't just another app on your phone. It's positioned as a tool designed to tackle global economic inclusion by fundamentally changing the financial plumbing. Okay, that rigorous vision mapping. Starting with the why of the market failure, moving to the what of this dictates the how, which transitions us nicely into their specific approach to R&D, research and development.
Right. So once that foundational vision is locked down, the strategy shifts into what they call the predictive R&D phase. This is where a huge chunk of the investment goes, apparently.
Yeah.
And it seems more intensive than, standard corporate on.
Yeah, this doesn't sound like just maintenance or incremental updates. It sounds like they're genuinely trying to predict where things are headed, maybe 5, 10 years out. How do they actually do that kind of forward-looking work?
Well, the heavy R&D investment is used to constantly monitor and model industry trajectories, specifically looking 5 to 10 years into the future. They analyze things like the path of decentralized computing, the shift from narrow AI to more general AI, even emerging threats like quantum computing's impact on security. The goal seems to be future-proofing the whole ecosystem, trying to prevent the entire platform from getting blindsided by the next big tech shift, whether that's in how data is handled or how it's secured.
And part of that must involve looking at the current market leaders. But like you said before, it's not about just copying them.
No, definitely not copying. It's competitive intelligence, but focused specifically on avoiding failures. They rigorously analyze competitors to see where those companies made critical mistakes, maybe structural errors in how they scaled or bad user experience choices, fee models. That analysis then directly informs how they design their prototypes. They're proactively trying to solve the flaws they see in competitor products before they even build their own.
And nothing gets released publicly until it's gone through serious internal testing first. Is that right?
Absolutely. Prototypes get built, they get tested, then they run through internal trials. And crucially, they gather early feedback from their selected founding members. These founders act as a kind of sophisticated pre-release user group. So it's this dual focus, predicting the future and proactively learning from past mistakes. That combination is likely what lets them launch products that are reportedly quite reliable from day one.
Right. Now, to actually pull off this kind of complex long-term vision, you obviously need a very particular kind of team. The sources talk about a really targeted talent acquisition strategy. Who are the key players they're trying to bring onto this special dream team?
Yeah, the recruitment is really focused to support that core mission. AI first, global reach, and simplicity. So that means going out and finding top-tier talent from around the world in specific areas. First, AI engineers, specifically people who are experts in advanced learning and deep learning, the kind of talent you need to build that are genuinely smart and adaptive, not just following simple rules.
Okay, AI experts. And what about the infrastructure side? If the goal is global scale, they need people who can build networks that won't fall over.
Precisely. So they bring in cybersecurity experts, people who really understand things like zero trust. Alongside them, cloud infrastructure architects. Sole focus is dynamic scalability and efficiency. Make sure the system can handle growth smoothly. And then tying it all back to that core philosophy you mentioned earlier, dedicated UI/UX designers. And their main job, create user experiences that are intuitive, simple, easy to navigate for anyone, anywhere in the world, even if you're not tech savvy.
That focus on simplicity is a huge challenge when the technology underneath is so complex. Let's talk about the core development techniques they use that help make all that complexity basically invisible to the end user. The first big one seems to be this AI-first mindset.
Core differentiator. In a lot of companies, AI gets kind of, bolted on later as a feature. Maybe a chatbot pops up, you get some recommendations. On path, it sounds like AI is integrated right at the foundation level of every product. It's more like the operative, not just another application running on top.
Okay, can you give us a clear example of that deep integration? O-Verify, their OKYC, the online Know Your Customer solution.
O-Verify is a perfect illustration. Traditional KYC, verifying identity online, often involves someone manually looking at scanned documents. That's slow, it's prone to human error, and it's really inconsistent across different countries. O-Verify, instead, uses advanced AI, AI-powered facial recognition, AI-powered document scanning to handle the verification. The machine learning models are trained to recognize and authenticate document types from all sorts of different countries and legal systems, and they cross-reference biometric data instantly.
So the AI is the core mechanism of building trust, making the whole process faster, potentially more accurate, and definitely more adaptable across different languages and regulations.
Exact. And the second major technique flows directly from that philosophical mandate we talked about, user-centric design. Because the goal is democratization, the interface has to be simple enough for someone who is a tech expert.
How does that simplicity actually show up in a product, say like OShop, which is their tool for e-commerce?
Well, OShop is designed specifically to tear down the technical roadblocks to selling online. It lets basically any merchant, anywhere, set up a professional-looking, fully working online store without needing to write code, without needing to manage web servers or understand complex hosting stuff. It essentially removes the technical and keeps small businesses out of the digital marketplace.
Right, that's the key to making it democratic, providing the sophisticated power but hiding the complexity. We also have this anecdote about OConnect, their video conferencing tool. It seems to perfectly illustrate that competitive strategy of learning from others' failures.
Yeah, OConnect is a great example of building something driven by user frustration. Mufareh team apparently did rigorous benchmarking. Tested OConnect head-to-head against the big players like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. But they weren't just ticking boxes like, do we have screen sharing? No, they focused specifically on getting rid of the common things that drive users crazy.
Oh yeah, and anyone who uses video conferencing knows those pain points all too well. They're infuriating.
They really are. Lagging video, calls dropping, terrible sound quality, interfaces that are just way too complicated and often feel counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You waste so much meeting time just figuring things out. So by making crystal clear audio and video stability, plus an intuitive design, the absolute priority to build a platform that was hopefully more stable, easier to use, and more affordable than the established competitors. It's like explicit counter-programming against what everyone else was doing.
That's smart. It's like saying if your competitor boasts 100 features, but 5 of them constantly annoy the user, Mufareh's strategy seems to be launch something that reliably fixes those 5 core frustrations, deliver a superior, less annoying experience, even if it doesn't have it right away.
That really captures the essence of their disruption strategy. They aim to build tech that just feels effortless. And that strategic rigor, that focus on simplicity and reliability, forces them to put incredibly strong requirements on the very foundations of their system, things like security and the ability to scale.
Which brings us to the architecture itself. Okay, so we've covered the vision, the R&D philosophy. Now we get to the actual nuts and bolts. How do you build a system that can sustain this huge global ambition, not just for launch, but for years, maybe decades? This is where that long-term thinking really has to kick in.
Yeah, longevity seems to be the absolute priority here. When you look at the requirements they set for scalability and architecture, the core challenge is supporting massive numbers of people all at once. Their systems are apparently designed from the ground up to handle millions, potentially even billions, of users simultaneously without the performance degrade. That's a colossal engineering task.
How do they actually guarantee that performance? We hear these terms like cloud-native technology and advanced load balancing. For someone listening who isn't deeply technical, what does it actually mean in practice? How do they keep things reliable?
Okay, think of it like this. Cloud-native technology.
Our big, bold, beautiful dream. How great is that? His character and integrity has remained unwavered, even in the most difficult times. Taught us and reminded us of pruning, adjusting the sails, being fueled for and rising from the shadows to the sunrise. But you know what? Today is about moving forward. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce this man that I know, love, and trust, our founder, Mr. Ash Mufareh. Welcome, Ash. So good to see you.
Very good to see you all. Thank you so much, Susie. And I am really excited to deliver this message to you today. Uh, it is delightful to see all of you here. What a moment in life. I'm your friend, Ash Mufareh, speaking to you today directly, personally from the heart. Whether you're a longtime supporter or somebody who stood in the sideway or been distracted by other things, or someone who's been quietly just watching, unsure what's next. I want to take the opportunity to speak to you today with perfect clarity, humility, and renewed purpose. Obviously, we're at a turning point, and I believe that with all my heart, actually, that what lies ahead is worth everything it took to get here. I know it's taken a while, but it's worthwhile. And I wasn't sure. Honestly, I'm having a hard time to say this, but I promised to talk to you with clarity and transparency all of the time. As I was preparing for this and having some bullet points and highlights, uh, I wasn't planning to talk about this topic on this global update. I actually made a deliberate choice not to mention anything about our situation with the SEC. I thought I'm leaving that out for now. It is no secret that this litigation has been challenging, painful, however, and lengthy. But fortunately, we have been represented by some of the best, most experienced, and skilled lawyers in the country, period. Everybody could look up who's representing us. Couldn't get any better team. And under my instruction, they've defended the case vigorously. But that has taken time, attention is away from our core mission. However, I've got to tell you, I'm so encouraged by the recent developments. In fact, I'm actually pretty excited, and I look forward to being able to give you much more complete and positive update on this topic very, 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 very soon. So I can tell you It's a very bad day and not so exciting for the haters. They're not having a good day. And this is not for. This is probably a nightmare for them. Good. I have to say that up front, loud and clear. And what a victorious day. I will be addressing on a separate day, separate exclusive update again, probably number 2, because it's a big topic and I know you want to know more, and I'll break it down to you with what's allowed, what's productive or meaningful to you. But I'd rather to go back on track and continue my plan about a few things that you want to hear today. Let's begin by being completely transparent. This has not been easy for any of us. Yes, probably longer than we hoped for. We've experienced delays, we've dealt with disappointments, and yes, we've made mistakes. I did. Some of us actually fell short and, not as we hoped for. But some plans and some of our production actually had to be scrapped and rebuilt from the ground up, totally from the scratch. And the truth is, some people we trusted were not what we thought who they are and who they were. I take a full responsibility, obviously, for everything that has happened under my leadership, and not in shame, but with someone who has learned, adapted, and committed to doing better. And when you build something bold, the risk is bigger, but so is the potential reward. It's worth it. And I know many of you have been frustrated, some confused, and you've been waiting for a moment of clarity. This is that moment. Crystal clear. The road ahead is very clear. So let's talk about the recent survey and some of the revelation. And I am super excited to talk about this. Recently, we've invited you to and participate in a private survey. 3 simple questions. No pressure, no spin, just truth. And we needed to know, are you still with us actually? We want to know. We want to feel you stand. We know where we stand. How long are you willing to wait? And do you believe it's time for a new vehicle to carry out our shared mission? Now, let me tell you what we found. And what was going in personal thought with you, I had 3 predictions. I've told the team and those who spoke with me on the side, behind the scenes, I've told them I had 3 predictions, okay, of how many people I thought would respond or would be engaged. I gave one low prediction and one kind of middle of the road, and one I thought was probably overly optimistic, okay? Big, medium, small, okay? Or small. But what happened next left me absolutely floored. Explain that to you, you may realize the importance of this. You didn't just meet my most optimistic prediction. That's okay. But by nearly 3 times. So small, medium, big. 3 times bigger than the big.
Good.
I was astonished. That alone tells me how you're still here. You are ready forward to move forward. You are good to move forward. You're not stuck in the past. That was an eye opener. Okay, I shared with you the answers you gave. Over 90% who said without hesitation. I will try to share with you the exact shot. Okay, I am conservative by telling you over 10. Some of them are 98 points. So you could say 100% without hesitation. I'm totally with you. No matter how long it takes, I see the vision. I agree. And if we want to succeed, we need a new vehicle. We need a new direction. We need a new way of running and operating. That was loud and clear. Thank you for that. Respond. Every one of you who responded, you've given to continue the mission more. I'm already pumped, as you tell, but you've given the leaders. They're even more motivated now, and you've us. We started this journey in the face. And let me add a little bit more to this. From your end, you see 3 symptoms. Okay, what could this doesn't take a genius, and the results are very obvious. Okay, most of you selected I'm fully committed, and what timeline it takes. Okay, and we need a new vehicle. That is clear. You see all of that, but we have in data to you that are very compelling. Number one, the number of people. And here's another one. So the number of people, the time to select, and the number or the frequency of most of you going to the same service as many as times a day. The overall sessions are practically a weekend and a day, right? Millions and millions and millions of logs in. Who thought this would be possible?